Today I have decided to speak on the topic of gender bias and discrimination in the United States. It is no secret that it does exist here, and it is a huge ongoing problem in our country, most notably in the workplace. There are many legal and ethic issues that people face in the workplace today. One of these issues that affects many women would be pay equality. For many years, women have made a considerable amount less than their male co-workers who perform the same jobs. Despite civil rights laws and improvements in women's economic status, the workplace discrimination still lingers today. The average full-time female takes home only 80 cents for every dollar a full-time male takes home. Though this has been a long-standing problem, many laws and activists have fought hard to fight for pay equality. Pay equality in the workplace is a national issue that exists in all ethnic groups, and it's been seen in every state across the country. Hispanic, Native American, African American, and Native Hawaiian women have lower annual incomes compared with non-Hispanic, white, and Asian American women. This now would become more than just discrimination against women as a whole. It would affect women from different ethnic backgrounds as well. This affects the whole family when a woman is bringing home only a fraction of what they would be making. There are many examples of discrimination in the workplace, but pay inequality has been the front runner for legal and ethical issues. This affects women of all ages, education levels, and races. This brings up the term discrimination. Discrimination has been an issue in the workplace as well, which goes further than just gender. A popular term for pay inequality is the gender pay gap. This is literally a 20% gap between what the average male worker brings home as compared to women professionals. The gap has narrowed since the 1970s, which is due mainly to the progress in women's education and men's wages rising at a slower rate. If the pay gap continues to improve at the rate it has in the last 40 or so years, we would not reach pay equality until the year 2059. But there has been signs of progress slowing down. In the case of age, evidence points out that it is not just a number. Both full-time men and women see an increase in income with age, but it can also be seen that there is also a larger pay gap as the workers become older. Women are shown to make up to 90% of what men make until around the age of 35. After 35, median earnings for women are usually 74 to 82% of what men are paid. Even more, a report from the Council of Economic Advisors found that the gender pay gap in the United States is 2.5 percentage points larger than the average amount industrialized countries. It is true that earnings do increase for both men and women as years of education increase for both men and women. Though there is more education, this does not close the pay gap between men and women. Education improves wages for women of all races and ethnicities, but earnings still affected by race and ethnicities, including gender. White women are paid more than African American and Hispanic women at all educational levels. Men still show a higher wage with the same education as their female equals. At every level of academic success, women's median earnings are less than men's median earnings. In some instances, the gender pay gap is larger at higher levels of education. The gender pay gap also affects professionals trying to pay off student loans. Both a man and a woman could have the same education and the same student debt, and statistics show that men are able to pay off their student loans before women professionals. Because of the pay gap, women make less and in return have trouble paying off their education. A report made in 2014 by the Bureau of Labor Statistics has stated that men who are employed worked 52 minutes more than employed women on the days worked. Numerous studies have debunked the idea that hours worked is the main reason for the pay gap between men and women. Studies have shown that there is only one small part of what has caused the gender pay gap. People have argued the traditional division of labor in the family puts women at a disadvantage, as women are more likely to devote themselves to housework and have less time to devote to their professional careers. The Organization for Economics, Cooperation, and Development reported in 2002 that women work fewer hours because they are more focused on child rearing and other unpaid household work, which is still unequally shared among partners. It is expected that someone who takes time off, maternity leave for example, will not make as much as someone who did not take time off. Since men are not commonly given maternity leave, they would be putting in more hours at work, and in return, their annual income would be higher. Though it is true that the average American male does not have the larger responsibility for child rearing or household work, there is much more to the pay gap than simple hours worked. The idea that women would pick careers that are more flexible is a stereotype that is held as a reason for the pay gap. A 2009 study of high school valedictorians in the United States found that female valedictorians were planning to have careers that made them a median salary of $74,000 a year, while male valedictorians were choosing careers with a median salary of $97,000 a year. The reason women may choose careers that make less annually, the researcher for the New York Times article has stated the main reason why women choose a lower income career is because they worry about combining family and a career in the future. The Equal Pay Act of 1963 is a labor law in the United States which is aimed at abolishing pay inequality based on sex. It was signed into law by John F. Kennedy on June 10, 1963. The bill addressed issues of discrimination in the workplace based on gender. In the bill, Congress stated that sex discrimination lowers wages and living standards for employees where it is necessary for their health and efficiency, prevents complete utilization of available labor resources, and blocks the free flow of good in commerce. This was the first big step for pay equality on a large scale, where a president signed a bill that would protect women around the country. This was a big step for women that had been making their voices heard for years prior. The act would be followed by many steps to pay equality in the workplace. In 2009, the Obama administration signed an executive order that required companies with 100 employees or more to report to a federal government how much they were paying each of their employees. These reports from companies would be disclosing pay data broken down by race and gender to the United States Equal Employment Opportunity Commission and the Department of Labor. It was the hope that the administration that this would help break down discrimination in the workplace and help close the pay gap. The act would really hold companies responsible for how they pay their employees, and there would be a screening process for payment. If it is shown that a company was discriminating an employee based on gender, race, ethnic background, or sexual orientation, the employer would be held responsible and the employee would be able to press charges against the company for which they work. The executive order follows the Lilly Ledbetter Fair Pay Act, which was also signed by President Barack Obama in 2009. This act allows employees to file lawsuits when it comes to equal pay for up to 180 days after a discriminatory wage. During the Obama administration, many steps were taken to try and close the pay gap and to demolish discrimination in the workplace. It is shown to make some improvements in the recent years. Since these acts were put into place, that the gap was closed a bit, and improvements have been seen since these companies are being held accountable for the wages they set for their employees. The act gives employees the power to fight for their equal pay if ever it became an issue in the workplace. This was a huge step in protecting the employee and giving them the opportunity to fight for their wages that they feel were wrongly withheld from them. When it comes to the legal and ethical issues of pay equality in the workplace, it is clear it has been a battle in the United States for a very long time. Many steps have been made to try and close the gap in pay across all areas of discrimination and gender. Though there have been some improvements, the research and through research and statistics, you can see that the United States still has a long way to go to tackle the issues of pay inequality. Hopefully, after seeing work being done in the last 10 or so years, more work will be done to help people of all genders, sexual orientation, race, and ethical issues have a fair and equal working environment. This is something the United States government needs to keep addressing and make improvements towards.